Hello friends, welcome again. Friends, in this video lecture today we want to understand Renaissance as a literary movement found in English literature. We are also going to discuss some important elements, some important characteristics of Elizabethan literature, because the age of Elizabeth and Renaissance, the movement of Renaissance, they go side by side at the same time during the 16th century. But friends, before we move ahead, I request all my viewers to please subscribe to this channel and click on the bell icon so that whenever I upload a new video, you will get the notifications. So friends, now let's begin. Renaissance, it is a movement of literature. It is a movement which is found in the field of literature, art, culture and everywhere in England during the 16th and 17th century. Friends, regarding this age, regarding this time period of Renaissance, time period of Elizabethan Age, H.P. Lovecraft, an important historian, has rightly said that if I could create an ideal world, Mr. Lovecraft wants to say that if someone wants to create an ideal world, the best kind of a world, it would be an England with the fire of the Elizabethans, the correct taste of the Georgians, and the refinement and pure ideals of the Victorians. According to H.P. Lovecraft, these three are considered the most important periods in the entire history of England. And the age of Queen Elizabeth, 16th century, is considered as the age of fire, the age of passion, the age of romanticism, the age of materialism and individualism. And that we are going to discuss in today's lecture. Friends, Renaissance, it is a French term, now very widely used in English language also, but originally it comes from French language. Renaissance or the Elizabethan Age is considered as the fast breathing, the most flowering period in the entire history of English literature. If you examine different forms of literature like poetry, drama, prose, criticism, everywhere, all these forms of literature reached its ultimate height of success during this period. We have some great writers. People call this Elizabethan Age, people call this period of Renaissance as the golden period in English literature. The question is why? And the answer is that we have some great masters like William Shakespeare, who is considered as the father of English tragedy, the father of romantic tragedy. He became the dazzling star in the galaxy, in the firmament, in the sky of English literature during this 16th century. Apart from William Shakespeare, we have some great poets like Edmund Spenser, Sir Philip Sidney, Thomas Wyatt, and so many others who took poetry to the height of lyricism, the height of romanticism. Not only this, in the field of comedy writing, Ben Jonson did so many experiments in the field of comedy, and he innovated a new kind of comedy which was known as comedy of humor. Ben Jonson was also living during this period of Renaissance of Elizabethan Age. Apart from him, we have some prose writers like Francis Bacon. His name has become immortal in the hearts of the lovers of English literature because he published hundreds of essays which are full of wisdom and practical life. Okay, so Sidney, Shakespeare, Spenser, Thomas Piatt, Francis Bacon, and all these great personalities lived during this period of Renaissance. And that is the reason why, friends, it is considered as the golden period, the fast breathing period, and the most flowering period of English literature. Now, first of all, let's try to understand the meaning of the term Renaissance. As I told you in the beginning, the term Renaissance actually comes from French language and it means rebirth or it means revival. Okay. Now, when we talk about rebirth, we must understand that something is already dead which is revived. So the question is, what was dead in England which is revived during this period? The period from, some historians consider a very long, broad period of Renaissance starting from 1500 to 1650. And if we talk about the English literature, some historians believe the period from 1558 to 1625 is considered as the period of Renaissance. But all in all, this 150 years are considered as the period of Renaissance. Renaissance means revival. It means rebirth. Now, if you examine the English life, British people before the 15th and 16th century, most of the times you see that people were living in dark ages. The Middle Ages from 12th to 14th or 15th century, this 300-400 years is considered as the period of dark ages, right? People were ignorant, people were illiterate, and people were orthodox during till the 16th century. But 16th century onwards, all of a sudden, there was a revival. Now the question is, what was the reason for this change? Okay, this movement of Renaissance is the reason. And this movement actually, friends, began in Italy during the 14th century. From Italy, it travelled to France and other Western European countries, and then it reached England during the rule of Queen Elizabeth during the 16th century. The magic of this movement brought about a huge change, a drastic change in social life, in economic, religious, and literary life of the people. Okay, now the question is, why such change happened in British life? Then there are three reasons. Okay, we may understand these three important events which brought about such a huge change in the life of the people during the 16th century. And the first one is the invention of typewriter. Now, friends, you might be wondering, how come a small invention of a typewriting machine brings so many changes in the field of literature, religion, politics, and society? But friends, let me tell you, when this typewriter was invented at the end of 15th century, this brought about a change in the field of literature. Why? Because before this invention of the typewriting machine, people used to write less, people used to read less. Why? Because only hard copies written by the authors were given to the readers. So no printing technology was available. Okay, but then the invention of this typewriting machine proved a blessing to England. Why? Because social, religious, and literary writings were now printed in thousands of copies, right? And books were now easily available to the readers. And as a result, there was an increase among the readers and rise among the authors also. Hundreds and thousands of readers were now reading literature. Hundreds and thousands of authors were now writing literature. So writing and reading became a habit of the people, and because people started reading literature, that's why this cleaned off the ignorance of the people. People became so much aware about their own existence. They started gaining knowledge about the world. So knowledge is power, and this is how the British people of the 16th century became the powerful people, just because of this reading habit. Okay, the old cobwebs of orthodoxy and ignorance were now cleared off, rubbed off by this habit of reading. And the reason was the invention of the typewriting machine. Another important reason why there was a change in this life, social life and political life of the people, is the defeat of Spanish Armada. Armada means army. Okay, the spirit of nationalism, the spirit of patriotism was found among the British people. Why? Because England had defeated the Spanish army, and the people of England were now infused with patriotism, nationalism, and all. You find a kind of unity among the people now. You find a kind of self-confidence among the people. Okay, and this unity, this spirit of self-confidence, because of such things, people welcomed each and every new change, new invention with great courage and great nationalism and patriotism. So change was welcomed by the people for the first time, because during the Dark Ages, before the 16th century, during the Dark Ages, people were very much orthodox by nature. So this orthodoxy has been evaporated, it disappeared during the 16th century. And the third most important reason why English life changed during this 16th century is overseas exploration. Friends, when you were studying in schools, you must have heard about Christopher Columbus. You must have heard about Vasco da Gama. Okay? These people, these explorers, they explored the other countries of the world, other corners of the world, like they went to India, they went to America, they reached some of the Caribbean islands, they reached Africa also, and from there, they brought much richness to their home, to Europe. Okay, they came back with their ships loaded with pearls and spices and diamonds and very expensive materials which were not available in Europe, which were available in India, America, other Caribbean islands, Africa, and all such places. So as a result, what happened? Europe and England also became very rich countries, right? And because of richness, materialism entered into the life of the people. So, friends, remember these three reasons. Number one, the invention of typewriting machine. Number two, the defeat of Spanish Armada by English army. And number three, Columbus, Vasco da Gama, such explorers brought about much richness in their country. And now, friends, let's come to the main point of discussion, and that is the salient features of English literature during the period of Renaissance, during the 16th century. The first one is interest in Greek literature. Friends, because of the invention of movable typewriting machine during this Renaissance period, it gave birth to the interest in study of Greek literature and Greek philosophy. For the first time, translations were now easily available. People did not know Latin language. People did not know Greek language, but because of development of printing technology, translations were now easily available in the printed books. So the great ancient Greek writers, philosophers, poets like Homer, Virgil, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, they were some great ancient Greek writers and philosophers. Their literature, their philosophy, their poetry was now easily available to the British people, to the English people, and they started reading their Greek literature. So you find a deep impact of Greek literature on English literature also. Why? Because when the English authors, when they started writing their literature in their English language, they first of all read the Greek poets, they followed the Greek poets, the Greek philosophers, okay, and then they started writing their English literature. So you find an influence of Greek literature on English literature, right? You find an impact, deep impact of this Greek philosophy, Greek literature in English literature produced during the 16th century. Another important element of the Elizabethan literature is abundance of output. Friends, abundance means too much. Vipul, okay? It's my name. Okay. So abundance means too much of output of literature you find during the period of Renaissance. Why? Because Queen Elizabeth, as I told you, was ruling on England during this period, and she was very liberal. She gave freedom to the writers, to the authors. Okay, hundreds of new pamphlets, hundreds of new essays and treatises were written by the authors, and the output of literature was much wide. You find infinite number of poems, infinite number of plays written during this period. So that is the second thing that you find during this period. Third one is the spirit of materialism and the spirit of individualism. As I told you, because of Columbus, because of Vasco da Gama and other such explorers, England became very rich country, became a very rich country. Okay, and wherever there is richness, friends, remember there is materialism. Materialism means love for pleasure, love for worldly matters. Okay, so let me give an example. For example, when you become so rich, you start driving a car, you start buying some bungalows and all these things. Okay, you have ACs in your home, in your old rooms, you have so many servants and all. So that is known as material approach to life, materialism. This materialism you find in literature which was written during this period. Okay? As I told you, the great explorers like Vasco da Gama, Columbus, they went to West Indies, Africa, India, America, and they brought much richness to England to eat, drink, and be merry. Khao, pio, and moj karo. This was the common philosophy of life accepted by the people during this period. There was a great effect of this materialism in literature also. If you read the plays of William Shakespeare, the plays of Christopher Marlowe, then you find this materialism which is reflected in their literature. For example, if you read Dr. Faustus, you come across these lines: "Oh, what a world of profit and delight, of power, of omnipotence is promised to a studious artisan. All things that move between the quiet poles shall be at my command." Dr. Faustus, the character, wants to command the whole universe. Okay? He wants to be the most powerful person. He wants to achieve power over everybody in this universe. This is what? This is the spirit of individualism, that I am the great person. This is the spirit of materialism, that I want to have all worldly pleasures of this earth. So, in literature, you find materialism and individualism. Spirit of independence is also found. Because of individualism, people of England, they became so much extravagant. Okay? God, heaven, and death, all these became fairy tales. People were not much worried or afraid of God even. Okay? People were not worried what will happen after death. And this spirit of independence is found in the plays of Christopher Marlowe. Let me give you these lines from Tamburlaine the Great. Tamburlaine the Great is a tragedy written by Christopher Marlowe. Here, the character says, "Oh, a god is not so glorious as a king. I think the pleasure they enjoy in heaven cannot compare with kingly joys on earth." Here, the character is the king in this play, and the king compares himself with God, and he says that I am greater than God. God is not as glorious as I am. The pleasures that I am enjoying here on this earth are greater than than the pleasures of heaven. So you just imagine the spirit of individualism, the spirit of independence found in the plays written during this 16th century. This spirit of independence is also found even among the authors, among the writers of Renaissance. Okay, no doubt they borrowed the style from Greek literature. Okay, they borrowed this thing from Greek literature, they borrowed the stories from Greek literature, but they used their own power of imagination and they made the dross into gold. Okay, they made brass into gold by using their own original power of writing, power of imagination. And Spenser is an example. Why? Because Edmund Spenser, who lived during the 16th century, he innovated in the art of writing poetry, and he published his poetry in a new style which was later on known as Spencerian Stanza. And this Spencerian Stanza became so popular that hundreds of other poets who lived during the 17th, 18th and 19th century, they followed this Spencerian stanza. So that was the original independent creation of Edmund Spenser. Moreover, another important thing to note about the period of Elizabethan Age is the fast development of drama. During this period, drama reached its maturity. You see Shakespeare, the master of writing tragedy. Ben Jonson, the master of writing comedy. Shakespeare wrote 4 immortal great tragedies: Hamlet, Macbeth, King Lear, Othello, and he wrote about 32 plays all through his lifetime. Okay, you find different forms or different types of drama, whether they are comedies, tragedies, tragicomedies, the mixture of tragedy and comedy, historical plays, historical romances, all types of dramas you find during this period, and they were highly successful during the 16th century. James Fenton, an important historian, rightly says that considering the wealth of poetic drama that has come down to us from the Elizabethan and Jacobean period, it is surprising that so little of any value has been added since. So he wants to say, James wants to say that the value that you find in drama during the Elizabethan age, later on, after 17th century onwards, no one else has added something more to the development of drama. So the height that you see, height of success of drama that you see during this period, later on you will not find such height of success. And another important feature of Elizabethan literature is the popularity of poetry. English poetry became so popular that the historians, the critics call this period as the nest of singing birds. The nest of singing birds means there were hundreds of poets who are compared to birds and they are singing melodious poems. Okay, and that's why Elizabethan age is known as the nest of singing birds. Melodious poetry, romantic poetry, you find unwithering, the poetry like unwithering flowers were written by Edmund Spenser. Edmund Spenser's Fairy Queen, Shepherd's Calendar, and many more poems written by him became so immortal in English literature. Apart from Edmund Spenser, we have some other poets like Sir Philip Sidney, Thomas Wyatt, and many others who made poetry popular during this period. And friends, this is the last point to note about the elements of Elizabethan literature, that is the rise of prose literature. Drama developed during this period, poetry also became popular during this period, and prose also did the same thing. Before Renaissance, before 16th century, English prose was living under the influence of Latin language. But during the 16th century, you find that English prose came in its real color. You have some great writers like Thomas Eliot, George Cavendish, Thomas Wilson, Francis Bacon, who became the fountainheads, the forefront writers who made English prose popular in English literature. So friends, here we come to the conclusion of this discussion. Let me tell you that the beginning of Renaissance during the 16th century is indeed a heavenly blessing to English literature. Why? Because all forms of literature, whether poetry, drama or prose, they rose to a delirious height. If you want to find out the greatest tragedies of English literature, you go to the 16th century. If you want to find out melodious poetry of English literature, you read Edmund Spenser, you read Sir Philip Sidney, you read Thomas Wyatt. Okay? And if you want to read the plays full of power and passion, you read the plays of William Shakespeare and Christopher Marlowe. Why? Because all these people lived under the great impact of Renaissance. So that's why this period, the literature of this period became the period of Golden Age. It became the literature which is immortal in the hearts of the readers. So friends, here we come to the end of this discussion. Thank you for listening to me. Friends, please subscribe to this channel and share this video among your friends and classmates. Thank you very much.